Yesterday, Frontier gave us the first look at the brand new ship, the Nomad, and this one is worth sticking around for because it's very unlike anything that we've seen so far. And my take on this is it could have a far-reaching impact on the game as a whole. Now, the Nomad arrives on the 30th of June, which incidentally is the same day as the long-awaited Operations update. So it launched into ARC's Early Access, which means it will be a cash purchase initially and then come later on for in-game credits. And what makes this so different to everything we've seen so far is that this is a ship-launched vessel. It's taken on the same vein as the ship-launched fighters we had many years ago. In other words, it's a separate ship you can launch from your main ship. And Frontier have been very clear here that this isn't a fighter, it is an exploration-based vessel, and it comes as such designed in a specific way. For example, it's got helicopter-style landing skids. These are narrow supports that are designed for stability on uneven and rocky terrain. That means the kind of terrain that often makes landing a full-sized exploration ship a complete nightmare. This will allow you to get to those locations you otherwise might not be able to. Secondly, there's pivoting engines here for VTOL, that's vertical takeoff and landing. They'll also rotate upward when you land, keeping the heat and the thrust clear of the ground. Now, interestingly, Frontier have positioned this ship as a tool for exobiology. And that's what you might normally see, the type of on-foot scanning you do when you scan those plants. What you're about to do here is use the ship to do the same. It's the type of thing that you can now leave your bigger ship up above the planet, as Frontier said. I don't want to come back to that in a minute because what exactly does above the planet mean? But you're about to take the Nomad, drop down to the closer surface of the planet, get up close to these organisms, and then scan them. In other words, this separate ship-launched vessel is going to have its own utility. In fact, it is basically a tool that you can fly, and that's something I do want to discuss further into the video. Now, I noticed in the short that I released yesterday, the little clip about the Nomad, there was quite a few comments on there that reveal many people are very happy about this idea of the Nomad, a small little ship, but also calling it a shuttle. Many people mentioned Star Trek-style comparisons, and red shirt jokes were also thrown into the mix. And I think that's quite an interesting take, because obviously a shuttle is very different to a fighter. And let's think exactly what a shuttle means, especially when it becomes to sci-fi titles, sci-fi franchises, because in pretty much every science fiction franchise out there, we've got a very specific thing of what a shuttle means. Regardless of whether that's Star Trek, The Expanse, Battlestar Galactica, whatever, a shuttle is autonomous. It's something that works completely independent from the mothership. So in other words, the mothership goes off and does its own thing, whether that's the Rocinante or the Enterprise, the Galactica even, and the shuttle goes down to the planet. They're in different stories at the same time. They're in different parts of the, completely separate environments, really. So the issue here is that Elite Dangerous doesn't currently have a vehicle mechanic that works in their way, at least not when it comes to ships. If we look at ship-launched fighters right now, they need the mothership to be right there with them, and this can be maybe, I don't know the exact distance, what is it, a few kilometers at most? And yeah, that's because your main ship is always tethered to the ship-launched fighter. They can't separate from each other. You can't have your main ship up in space, around a planet up in orbit, deploy the SLF, and then go down to the planet in the fighter, leaving your mothership behind. Surface vehicles, on the other hand, are quite different. If you have an SRV on a planet, you can go pretty much anywhere you want, and if you go out of a certain range of your ship, well, your ship will just go and fly away and leave. To put it plainly, the fighter is tethered, the SRV is untethered, but it's ground-bound, so there's no in-between between these two different modes. Now, if we look at Frontier's announcement, the Nomad is being described as something that might possibly sit in that gap. There's a word that Frontier used when they chose to describe the relationship between the Nomad and the mothership, and this is something I really want to look at a little bit closely, because those of you who have followed Frontier for quite a while now will know that they choose their words very carefully when it comes to promo material. So what they said is above the planet, not in orbit. Very specifically, let's quote that sentence. They said, you can still land your larger exploration ship on a planet's surface, but utilizing the Nomad, you're now able to choose to leave your main ship above the planet, deploy the Nomad, and get up close to those harder to reach organics. So quite understandably, and my read was exactly this as the first time, that Frontier meant leave your ship up in orbit, and the reason I suspect many people feel that is because they're describing the Nomad as a shuttle, and as I said, in many sci-fi franchises, shuttle specifically means leave your main ship behind and head off in a completely different environment. But here's the thing, and I think we should keep this in mind, Frontier did say above the planet, not in orbit, and that is very likely a deliberate choice of words. And yes, like I say, Frontier are always very careful when it comes to communicating in this way, and they have been for years. And in that context, above can mean two different things. It can mean above the surface, but it can also mean above as in orbit. So what we don't know yet is whether the Nomad works like a ship-launched fighter, that it will be tethered to the mothership, or that it will work completely independent from the mothership when you're about to fly entirely where you want. So it's an outstanding question at the moment. We don't have an exact answer for it, but it really affects and determines what we can do with the Nomad. So yeah, that word in up above, what do they call it? Yeah, above the planet rather than in orbit is doing quite a lot of carrying there, because it leaves this entire usage of the ship open to interpretation. Now, there's something else going on here, because as I said, the Nomad is releasing alongside the operations update, and the operations update isn't just a one-off. For example, there's a variety of different scenarios there. We've spoken about one recently called the Firestorm Rescue, and that is just one of the many different operations that are going to be available. Frontier have committed to releasing more scenarios over time throughout 2026 and maybe even beyond. So for those of you wondering, Operations is an update due on the 30th of June. It's multi-stage PvE content where you can jump in with other players, so a group of you, and you can go out and each of you can play in different roles. Some of the missions will undertake in ships, some of them on foot. Either way, it's worth noticing that the timing of Nomad is coinciding with this update. And yeah, I'm wondering exactly what type of role, if any, a ship like this could actually play in such missions. And I want to point out here that this point on is entirely speculation, but it seems very possible to me, plausible and maybe even likely, certainly very nice, that such small ships could play a role in operations in the future. So maybe you can have small little ship-launched fighters, maybe you can have ships that are good at hacking, because as you saw, one of those missions does require you to hack the outside of the station. Maybe you have a little exploration vessel that needs to get into little shafts or vents inside the station. It's all things that you can do with a Sidewinder, because let's face it, whilst the Sidewinder is a small ship, it's still far too large to do things like that, and these little ship-launched vessels are certainly much smaller. There's a question I have about the future of the game, and something I do feel could open up a lot of opportunities if Frontier want to go down this route and start releasing more of these ship-launched vessels. Well, we've already got one that's an exploration-type utility. We can have others that have other utilities as well. Just think of the type of possibilities that might exist. A few off the top of my head. Some might be good at going cold, stealth-like. Others might be good at scanning or hacking. Others might be good at fitting in at little tight, nimble spaces, such as vent shaft, like I mentioned earlier. So yeah, not saying that Frontier are going to go in this direction, just saying that it certainly opens up an opportunity and a possibility there. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. There is another one on the screen right here. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.